Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, and welcome to Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Now, today I have a very special guest with me who is Anna Parker-Naples. She is a #1 British best-selling author. She's also the host of a top-ranking podcast called Entrepreneurs Get Visible and an award-winning business coach and speaker. She helps ambitious entrepreneurs and creatives to stand out as an authority in their field. Anna has a background as a multi-award-winning audio producer and a voice actor, including being recognized on the red carpets in Hollywood. And now she shares her knowledge to help others spread their message far and wide through confidence and know-how, or how to get visible, basically. She is the founder of the podcast membership group and also uses her audio knowledge to help experts reach the masses with their message. So without further ado, let me introduce Anna Parker-Naples. All right. Hi, Anna. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, Tara. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm one of your fans, Anna. As you know, I'm part of your podcast membership, and I did your 5-day podcast challenge. Was that a month ago, or was it a little bit about
I can't remember what date we did that. That was my second one. So I don't know. It's lockdown. I know it was in lockdown.
Yeah, it was definitely. So I did that, and then I went into the podcast membership, and now I've got a podcast.
You have a podcast now,
Who would
which
have
is
known?
brilliant. So you are getting your message out there.
Yes,
and spreading the word.
That's the whole point, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, Anna. So tell me a little bit about who you are then.
So first and foremost, I'm a mum to 3 children and I live in Bedfordshire. But right now, my business is about helping leaders and emerging leaders, coaches, entrepreneurs to get their message out there, which is kind of a big part of getting visible. I feel like there's many of us who know we can lead the way, who can help other people improve their lives. And one of the mechanisms that I specialize in is about how to have impactful podcasts, because done right, it can be a really important cornerstone for your business.
Yeah, you've got a huge podcast. You've just celebrated your 100th episode.
We have, we just got to 100 episodes. That's my second podcast. Entrepreneurs Get Visible, at least listened to in 73 countries around the world now. We've got tens of thousands of listeners in a relatively short space of time. And you know, for me, the podcast is the core of my business, which I think is slightly different to the way a lot of people, a lot of business owners start podcasts as this kind of little thing on the side and then don't really know what they're doing with it. But when you get it right, it can really work.
Yeah, because that's the main part of your message is podcasting, isn't it? The way you get through there.
Yeah, because what I found when I came into the coaching space, into the online business space, I found that the reason I came into this world in the first place, well, there were 2 reasons. One, I felt that I had an important story to share with people, that you can change anything about your life. You can do anything if you let people know the things you're good at and you actually stop hiding your own abilities from yourself and to other people.
Yeah.
But feeling that massive drive, I then really struggled. How do I let people know about me when I don't have a following? How do I get that message out there? And I found it incredibly frustrating. And I've got a massive background in audio, and I had thought I was leaving that behind me. And it was after a couple of years in the coaching space that people were just coming to me and naturally asking about podcasting, because I know audio inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually after I read someone else's book on podcasting, and it had such poor quality information that I just decided I need to step up. There's a sign for me there that I
Yeah.
need to kind of step into that role. And so so now we've got the podcast membership. We've got members all over the world. And what's the most exciting thing for me in that is that I now know that people like yourself are getting their message out there. They know how to do it properly. And, I believe podcasting is a mechanism to change one life at a time. There might be something you or your guests say in your show that could
Yeah.
change someone's life.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's the power of podcasts.
Yeah, and it seems quite a simple thing, but when I actually looked into what goes into making a podcast, it's not just sitting down, recording yourself and popping it up there, is it? There's a lot more to it than you realize when you first listen to one, for example.
So you could just sit down, record a podcast and you could do that, but it wouldn't get your business anywhere. It wouldn't get your credibility anywhere. It wouldn't help you raise your profile. It wouldn't help you really speak to your ideal client. Or to the person that you want to help transform, because not everybody starts a podcast with a business in mind. That person you want to reach, that community you want to build. And if you get a few kind of cornerstone things right, then you can have a much greater ripple effect with your show.
Yeah, definitely. So you started out you were an actress originally. I've seen a picture of you.
So I was an actress. I was an actress until I had till I had my first child, and then I tried to keep it up in and around I've got 3 children, in and around having the others, and I just found it really challenging. And I guess there was a part of me that I only really wanted to work on stage, and I didn't ever feel like I was going to earn enough money, so why would I try that hard? Although I
Yeah.
felt that I was a talented performer. And what happened for me in my 3rd pregnancy is that I had a major complication, and my pelvis, I was in agony basically, and I developed a condition called SPD, which is fairly common, but I had the worst case they'd ever seen. And the doctors expected that I wouldn't walk again.
Wow.
So I was kind of crushed because I'm a really high energy person, and I thought I was going to return to stage. But around that time, I went and had an NLP session. I thought I was going for hypnotherapy. And he started to unpick all the things I was saying about my acting career, all the things I was saying about being in a wheelchair and what I thought it meant for the rest of my life. And I left that session realizing that maybe I could recover. Maybe it wasn't 100% true that there was no chance. And maybe there were other ways I could get my voice out there, get my talents recognized, and still be a stay-at-home mum. And that's really when I started looking at working in audio. Initially in voiceovers, and then later on in audiobooks and video games, but all from home, in and around the school run. And that's kind of my journey until I won multiple awards in Hollywood for my work.
I know, Hollywood, that's amazing.
It's kind of nuts, really. And it was the last time. My 7th award in Hollywood was really the same time I was completing my master NLP training. And I just knew that I have to show other people, as many people as I can, that if you change how you feel about yourself, if you change what you think about yourself, and then you go at whatever it is you're passionate about with strategy, then you can do anything. And that lies through a lot of my messaging. I talk about getting
Definitely.
visible. Yeah.
I have to ask, have you ever met anybody famous?
Yeah, I have. Oh gosh, I'm useless with names. William Shatner. I've done some stuff with him. I've actually met the real Erin Brockovich as well.
Wow.
Loads of people. But
I bet that's quite I don't know. I can't imagine meeting somebody famous in Hollywood. When I was there for an award myself, that must have been quite surreal, I guess.
Quite surreal. Yeah, quite surreal. I'm not going to lie. But at the end of the day, I'd worked really hard, and so by the time I won those awards and was a finalist for many of those awards, I knew that I belonged in the room. And a lot of that is what I teach. You've got to decide where you fit in, because you could fit anywhere. You've just got to decide which tables. Well, you've got to decide which table. No, what's the phrase? Which chair you're going to pull up at which table. That's the phrase. And then you make that happen. So yes, it was surreal, but actually I'd already thought about it so often that it it wasn't surreal. It was something that I'd already replayed in my head. Not necessarily those individuals, but that sense of I can
You'd
do.
visualized it
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So tell me about, so last year you took your business back to zero. You stopped all your business, all your earnings, and started again.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that and how,
So
that sounds
so
crazy, but
I after 3.5 years ago, after I was that last time that I was in Hollywood with that for winning awards for audio, I felt very strongly that I had to just let people know that they could access life-changing materials.
yeah,
And I knew that I wanted an online business because I wanted to reach as many people around the world, and I wanted passive income. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. I knew nobody doing that kind of thing at all. And it took me a few months kind of thinking, well, what's it going to be? And I basically just had this kind of light bulb moment that I was going to help mums, and I was going to use audio, primarily things like hypnosis tracks, because I'm a master of hypnosis,
yeah,
meditations, visualizations, all of that stuff, and all of the stuff that I follow, and creating my own inspiration packs and that kind of thing. And so I launched an online business called Inspiring Mummy Club, and it just didn't work. And it did work. It was profitable from day one, but I couldn't scale it. And part
yeah,
of the reason I couldn't scale it was because I didn't really want to be speaking to just mums. And so it felt very hard to then show up and talk about how hard things are with the kids, because it's not my
yeah,
message.
yeah,
I felt like I got the audience wrong. And I hadn't really understood the mechanics of running an online business. I hadn't really understood about launching. I hadn't really understood about building your funnel and building the staircase of value. And I started a new mastermind probably about 18, 19 months ago now. And I remember in our third session, realizing that I'd missed a fundamental, not only was I talking to the wrong audience, but I'd missed a fundamental part of what I was doing.
yeah,
And I remember sitting there, and it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. It dawned on me, I've got this wrong, and that I can't just unpick a few bits. I am going to go all in and drop the lot. And actually, I went home and I sort of worked it all out that night. And 9 o'clock the next morning, I made some big announcements that I was stopping. so, um, and that then worked very hard behind the scenes. So I took no income for the March, April, May, and I started getting income again at the end of June. In that period, I totally transformed my branding, my message, the connections that I've been building on social media, being very deliberate and strategic, and really getting that message right. Who is it that I want to help? And realizing that I want to help very ambitious people who have this sense that they're meant for more, which in many ways is leaders or emerging leaders,
mm,
people who want more. And that had always been prevalent in my message. But before, I'd been weighed down by that label of helping mummies.
yeah,
So that although it was a twist, it wasn't, I actually felt really free in the fact that I could do that. And realizing that, that whole piece was about getting visible. And a lot of that I worked out as I was writing my book.
mm,
I knew that it had a very different working title, and it was only as I was reading it, writing it myself, I thought, well, what is the key message here? What's the takeaway that other people can implement? And it's then that it dawns on me that it's about, you need to get visible, because if you get visible, you can meet anyone, you can be referred to by anybody, you can be recommended by anyone, you can increase your income because people know who you are. And a lot of that is getting over yourself and getting over your own fears.
yeah,
So it's been a process of development, and realizing in that I have a skill, and I have a skill set that is actually quite unusual in the entrepreneurial space, because I have this Hollywood stellar audio background that most people obviously don't have.
no,
So, it's allowing myself to kind of refine. Mostly I refine as we go along. But at that particular time, I felt I needed to stop taking on one-to-one clients, close down a membership that was bringing in my income. So I then had this 3.5, 4 month period where I had lots of outgoings for the business. I was growing the business behind the scenes, but no income.
yeah,
And I think actually in many ways, it was the best thing I could have done, because it made me get super focused on what's the result I'm going to get. I'm not just going to take any clients. I'm not just going to work with anyone. I'm going to
yeah.
make sure I get the foundations right this time.
It was very brave of you, wasn't it? I mean, most people would have kept going, and maybe when that had finished, they'd carry on with something different. But to stop it completely,
I felt that I felt that it was the things that I was doing were constraining me and absorbing my
yeah,
energy in a negative way. And I also felt that I was essentially what's it called, like doing a cookie cutter version of something other people were doing, as opposed to doing something that was me, that was mine. I was kind of copying and replicating. And once I kind of took ownership that actually this business is primarily about me and what I bring to the
yeah,
table, and I'm going to do it my way, it was really freeing. So yes, I know all the strategies, yes, I know all the models, but everything that I bring out now is a reflection of me, which is very different.
yeah. It's it's very easy, isn't it, to when you're starting out in business to copy other people because you think, oh, well, they're successful, maybe that'll work for me, and
Yeah.
it's easy to copy them because you don't know what to do yourself. To be honest, in the
No,
beginning, it's very, especially if you've never run a business before. You don't really know what steps to take.
no.
So
And I'd been in that position just a few years before, where I knew nothing, but I felt very mission led.
yeah,
And it's a pretty painful place to be in, to not know how am I going to do this? What are the processes? No, and you sort of feel like you should know how to do it because people make it look very easy.
they do.
People
Yeah,
make it look easy. But that's because they have learned the right way. They've invested in mentors who've already done it.
yeah,
And I think in many ways, in the online, certainly in the online space, in the coaching space, this is still a very new era. The ways that people are using social media, it's all pretty new. And
mm,
so even the people who you think are really established, they've only just started working out in the last few years how to do this. So it's really not that far away for you if you understand the right mechanisms.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So you don't work with mums anymore. You work with
I work with
entrepreneurs. Is it more
Yeah,
or business?
I work with entrepreneurs, and uh, a lot of them are coaches, people quite mission led, a lot of them entrepreneurs, um, people who feel that they have more to give to the world and are leaders in some way. And I think a lot of that is about being a change maker. People who
Yeah,
know that actually if someone accessed their work or their teachings, it could change their relationships, their financial situation, it could change their business because they'll have more confidence. um, uh, because I think there's many people who are out there really, really struggling in like mentally or in life or in their businesses. And I think that you don't have to stay in that struggle. You don't have to stay
no,
in that place, but people don't know where to go for help.
no. Like you say, there's so much out there as well that you don't know where to look first, do you, to get help and advice and things like
No.
that. I mean, do you use your NLP still in your business and your hypnosis to some degree?
So I use them. I have a big kind of online shop with hypnosis and things like that, all of my tracks, and various online models where they are monetized somewhere around the
Yeah.
internet. But I tend to use NLP and timeline therapy as quite a fluid tool in my one-to-one coaching. So it's quite rare now that someone would book me for NLP work,
Mm,
because I often have it as bonuses if they come into a mastermind, that they get that work with me.
yeah.
Because sometimes I can see, it doesn't matter if I'm trying to teach someone about the strategy, if we've not dealt with that massive block, you're not going to do it anyway. So I do bring that in, but I don't practice it per se. It's
No.
not really something that people come and do with me, but it's normally an extra that's provided.
And you said timeline therapy? What's that?
So timeline therapy is, it's a derivative of some of the NLP work, and it gets you to look back along along your timeline. It's very hard to describe.
Okay.
It gets you to look back along the significant events of your life. When did
Yeah.
they happen? So, for example, if you had an emotion, a very strong reaction to something, okay, so let me take, for example, I'll take something that's
Divorce?
fairly something. Okay, maybe no, not necessarily divorce, because we're normally talking about limiting beliefs. So
Okay.
something, for example, like I hate spiders. So right now I'm having a massive issue around spiders. Okay, so what you're feeling in your body? What's the thought that's going on in your body?
Mm.
And then you think back, well, what was the first memory I have of feeling that particular way? What was that, and what was going on? So once you've accessed what that potential memory is, and it
Yeah.
might not even be the first one that comes up, you are then encouraged to imagine you're above yourself on a timeline, and you can float along to that space, that place where that first event happened.
Okay.
And in your mind, and you're kind of looking at it from a bird's eye view, and then you look at it from before the event, after the event, and then during the event. And from each angle, you are assessing what you could learn. So you're basically going back with your current adult mind and looking at an event that probably happened between the ages of 6 weeks and 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
to work out, well, it wasn't my fault that I thought that, and the reason I felt scared was because I picked up energy for, someone else's fear. It wasn't whatever it was. Maybe
Yeah.
spiders isn't the best example, but you see a past event where you've been quite wounded or made a limiting decision, to see what else you could have decided about yourself. It's really powerful work.
Yeah, we do pick up a lot from, for example, I mean, I used to be scared of spiders because my mum's absolutely petrified of them.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm a single mum with 3 children. I have to get the spiders out of the house.
You have to get the spiders.
So and they're not as scared as probably I was, because they see that I'm doing
You don't
it.
demonstrate it. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, but you can use that kind of work for anything. So, for example, if someone feels that they're not confident and they can't possibly go on camera, well, what is it that's happened previously when they're very small
Mm.
to make them feel that they aren't confident enough to go on camera? What's that all about? Where did it come from? Or quite a common one actually is people feeling that they can't write. They can't write properly, that they don't have a creative or an artistic element to them.
Yeah.
And actually, if you go back, it's been some parent or a teacher or someone in authority who has heavily criticized them or dismissed them because they're busy doing something else. And the child has then taken it to mean this soul crushing, I can never have this freedom of expression. So, unraveling lots of the blocks that lie behind, can be life-changing.
So I suppose you use that quite a lot then with your, like in your mastermind that I know you've just started a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess a lot of clients that you have in that group would benefit from something like that as well then, without necessarily teaching it.
So no, that's not something that I would teach, but in our one-to-one sessions, if they need that, I will say, look, I can see this from you. I can see your habits, your behaviors, you recognizing that this is holding you back. Should we work on it? And timeline therapy is actually very quick as well. So, so that's always in my toolkit. And I think that's the amazing thing about any of the mindset work, is that once you're skilled in it, it doesn't have to be formulaic. You can use it. You can take out those tools whenever you want to.
So that gives them a bit of extra help behind the scenes, as such, as apart from what they're learning, business strategy and things.
Yeah. Because I think anyone can teach the strategy, but if you are blocked, you won't implement it for whatever reason, or you will kid yourself you've implemented it, but you haven't, because really you don't want the result, because you're scared of being successful. You're scared of people thinking you're overly confident. You're scared that maybe you're not good enough. You're scared that you don't deserve to have money. And all those things actually stop you getting the results that you want.
It is crazy, isn't it, that people are more scared of success than failure.
Mm.
Definitely. People fail all the time, but success, they're like, oh my God, I can't. Well, I
the
want
reason
it,
is the reason that happens is that real sense of a fear of not belonging, a fear of rejection, and a fear of not being lovable. Because if you're excluded from you, and if you think about this from a caveman perspective, if you aren't part of the tribe because you are different, then you don't have a support mechanism. It's a survival technique, except we don't need that anymore.
No.
But that's why it happens again and again and again. And actually, when people are sabotaging their results, it's often something that's happened in their childhood, a fleeting comment or a belief that they founded. And if you can unravel that, then there's no stopping you.
It's crazy what happens in the mind and what we store and what we don't think about it, but it affects us subconsciously. It's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's those things that once you are aware of them and you are aware of why and how you're sabotaging yourself, then you can start to step into what you're doing. So there's a great book that keeps popping into my head called The Big Leap by Gay Hendrick. I think that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about upper limiting, that when you're getting lots of success, all of a sudden, lots of things will seem to go wrong or you can't get past it. And the reason is you've just reached that point where you don't have a model, or you don't have an earlier model in your life of having that next level success. And so you'll pull yourself back, you'll get ill, or you'll have an accident, or something will happen. And once you recognize that's you upper limiting yourself, you can step through it. It's like that glass ceiling, really.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to push through it, haven't you, all the time? So what advice would you give a brand new entrepreneur? What kind of maybe mindset advice, or in your business coach elements?
So it's not going to surprise you that a lot of my theme is about getting visible. First of all, you have to decide where you want to be. So think about who you want as your peers, your colleagues, your friends, your associates in terms of your business network, let's say in 5 years from now. Because if you are thinking big enough, you will start to take the steps. Well, how could I meet, if I wanted to meet that person in 3 years' time so that they're my associate in 5 years' time, where do I need to start to be? Where do I need to hang out? Where do I need to be seen? And then you need to start thinking, well, what is the one thing that I need to be known for and recognized for? So that a 5-year-old could tell someone what I do. Very often, particularly coaches, come up with all sorts of fancy titles. And actually, no, that doesn't work because no one remembers it. You've got to think, what's the result I offer people and how can I communicate that quickly and clearly? And then it's about, well, how do you get yourself out there? And a lot of that is the strategy behind the social media, the building your email list, the getting on podcasts. How do you do that? And picking initially one platform that you're just going to nail and get right and feel comfortable on, and then move on to the next, is probably the best way you're going to get results. If you try and do every platform right from the word go, you will probably just explode. Get one, maybe two right, have a presence, have a profile on each of them, but really use one or two and get them right before you move on to conquer the next.
Yeah, because they're all so different, aren't they? I mean, even the language that you use sometimes can be completely different. That you can't just always copy and paste what you want to say. And I get frustrated with Twitter because there's so much I want to say, and it's like, you've only got this few amount of characters, Tara. Sorry, and I'm like, no, I want some
you've
more.
got to scale it back.
But you can't if you've got, I don't know, for example, if I'm talking about like mindset or something, I find it really difficult to put the message out there with the big, like, the mindset and how you can help to get around it in such a small space. Yeah, it's really,
but then it's consistency. So you're never trying to get a result with just one post. It's the consistent message, letting people remember. People have to see you probably up to 30 times saying the same thing before they even realize what you're saying, never mind whether they take action or not. And for me, that gives me reassurance, because if I'm not showing up, how can I expect the results? So the more I show up, the more chance I know. And I see that now, particularly because I've been going with the one message for 16 months now. People will say, oh, I watched a live that you did a year ago and it really stuck with me. But that's because I've continued to remind them that I do the thing I do. But if you're not showing up, how can people know you? How can people remember you? And so one of the mistakes I see with social media is people don't know how to do it strategically. They don't know what story they're telling. Or they're inconsistent, or they're afraid of mentioning their business on their personal profiles because they're worried about that judgment. And actually, you need everyone around you to know what you're doing in order to get the results you want.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have you've definitely cornered the niche, because before I even knew anything about you and somebody had just said, "Oh, Anna's the podcast queen." I was like, I don't even know who Anna is, but
But
I don't know much
that.
about podcasts. But I was told that. It wasn't you that said, "Hi, Tara, I'm the podcast queen." It was somebody who said to me, Anna's the person for podcasts.
And so that's an interesting thing, because that actually came up on a podcast interview that I was doing with someone else, who they said they were the da-da-da. And I said, and I was saying, oh, how did that come about? And she said, I literally made it up one day, and then a week later, somebody said it back to me, and then somebody else said it. And I thought, okay. So we laughed. I said, right then, I'm the podcast queen. And it sort of was born from there. And then people who'd listened to that episode remembered that I claimed that, because you're claiming your space. So then people were saying, haha, I love the podcast queen. And I think it took me maybe a week where I put it in a couple of posts, and then other people were going into groups tagging me in as the podcast queen, because it's short, it's memorable, it does what it says on the tin.
Well, you've even got the t-shirt as well. I've seen the t-shirt.
I even now have the t-shirt. I do have the t-shirt. Lots of people want their hands on those t-shirts, but they're not having one.
Well, they can't all be podcast queen, can they? Sorry, no. It's a title.
It could be the podcast minions, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. You could have a few dukes and ladies and
yeah.
So what? So you've got the book, that's Entrepreneurs Get Visible, correct?
That's called Get Visible: How to Have More Impact, Influence, and Income.
Yep. You've got the podcast, which is Entrepreneurs Get Visible.
Yeah. And then my second book will be coming out in the next 6 weeks, fingers crossed, which is called Podcast with Impact.
That's a good title. I like that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Podcast with Impact: How to Launch a Podcast Properly. That's the. You're
going to sign those with the podcast queen.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought about that yet. I wrote it during lockdown.
Anna.
I wrote it during lockdown. So just the thought of even seeing people is quite exciting. Never mind whether I'm signing something.
So final question then. So how can my listeners find out more about you, or get in touch if they want to know more about podcasting or masterminds?
The best thing really is to head over to Entrepreneurs Get Visible, my podcast. So go from Tara's wonderful show to have a listen to mine. There's so much information for starting up a business, building your brand, getting visible. And yeah, it's just a whole minefield of everything that I know. I'm fairly open about teaching from the hard bits, the bits I've got wrong. And so, yeah, you'll find all sorts of nuggets over there. That's the best way. So come find me.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Anna. I really appreciate it. I know that you're a really busy lady, but thank you anyway.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tara. Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
So thank you so much, Anna, for that wonderful podcast. Anna is a bit of a household name in our house because she's so amazing at podcasts, and we listen to her shows, and also she's the one that helped me get started with podcasts because I didn't know what I was doing. So she is the one woman that you want to go listen to and find out more about. As we said, she is the podcast queen, which she totally is, and that's amazing. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this show. Let me know how you found it. I'd like to give a shout out to Vicky, who left me a review on my podcast here. And Vicky said that my podcast was a refreshing way of looking at changing the mindset, which I'm really glad to hear. She thought it was a calm approach to mindfulness without being forced. We don't like pushy, do we, really? So that's good. And she highly recommended listening to my podcast and challenging yourself. So thank you so much, Vicky, for your amazing review. I so appreciate that. As always, I read my reviews myself, and I like to give a shout out to people who have left me a review, because if you've spent the time writing it, I like to acknowledge it and spend the time giving you thanks too. So thanks so much for listening today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, have lots of fun and take care. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com/happy, inspired, motivated.